Let's make a two-stitch cable that slants to the left, just like these little cables over here in my swatch. First, we'll do it with the help of the cable needle. Here's how it works. When you get to the point where you want to cross the stitches, and that's going to be in a moment for me. So right here, these are the two stitches that I want to cross. Take your cable needle and slip one stitch from the left needle to the cable needle. Do it purlwise to make sure you don't twist the stitch. So that means you insert the tip of the cable needle from right to left into the stitch and then slip it off the left needle. And then let it sit in front of the work, like this. Then knit the next stitch. Now it's time to knit the stitch from the cable needle, and there are two ways to do it. We could either return it to the left needle or we could knit it directly from the cable needle, like this. I prefer to return it to the left needle, and that's what I'm gonna do. And then knit the stitch. Some stitch patterns would instruct you to purl the first stitch instead of knitting it. If that's the case, then go ahead and purl it. But in many cases, you would need to knit it. It all depends on the stitch pattern. So as you see, we now have a lovely left slanting cross right here in our swatch. Now let's do it without the help of a cable needle. And here's how it works. Keep the yarn at the back of the work and slip two stitches that you want to cross one by one knitwise. That means we insert the tip of the right needle from left to right as if we're gonna knit it into one stitch, slip it to the right needle, and then we do the same and slip the other stitch to the right needle as well. And this time we are twisting them, so we go from left to right. Now insert the tip of the left needle from right to left into both stitches, like these. And if you feel it is too tight and you can't get into those stitches, sometimes it happens, but normally it shouldn't be an issue. But if you do feel it's tight, then move the stitches closer to the tip of the right needle, just like this. Go in there and remove the right needle from the stitches. So as you see, we already crossed them without ever using a cable needle or without taking the stitches off the knitting needle. So we simply reposition them. And now we can knit both stitches the usual way. Just like this. Let's do it again. So first we slip these stitches, we keep the yarn at the back of the work. We slip these stitches one by one knitwise. So we go and slip one stitch as if we're gonna knit it and the other one. Then we insert the tip of the left needle into both stitches and knit them one by one. And that's how we make left slanting two-stitch cables with and without a cable needle. Now let's do the same thing, but make a right slanting cable. First we'll do it with the cable needle. So just as we did with the left slanting cables, we work to the spot where we want to cross the stitches. And then again, we take the cable needle and slip the first stitch purlwise without twisting it to the cable needle. But this time we keep the stitch at the back of the work, and that is very important, to move the stitch so far back that we don't see it, like this. Why is it important? Because if the stitch is kind of there, we might get confused about what to do with the yarn. We would be kind of not sure whether to put it in the front of the stitch or the back of the stitch, but if we leave the stitch out at the very, very back of the work, then there is no question about what to do with the yarn. We simply move it to close the gap created by this stitch and knit the next stitch. This is an important thing to remember, because often when we make cables, this is the only thing that could be confusing when we cross stitches to the right. And when we move it, like I said, to the very back of the work, then the issue is just solved without even being there. So now it is time to work the stitch that's hanging at the cable needle, and we move it to the left needle, or you can work it from the cable needle directly. It's totally up to you. And then knit the stitch the usual way. Again, some stitch patterns might require you to purl the stitch. If that's the case, go ahead and purl it. Now let's do it without a cable needle. And here's how it happens. Insert the tip of the right needle from left to right into both stitches that you want to cross, as if you're gonna knit them together, just like this. And then slip them to the right needle. See, they are already crossed. So we're gonna simply move them to the left needle without crossing them again. And it is usually easier to move them purl-wise. So we're gonna just slip them back like this. But because we took this easier route, the stitches are twisted, so they do not look the same way as they look normally, right? And that means we should knit them through the back loop to make sure they do not look twisted in the project, in the fabric. See, we made a lovely right slanting cross. If you don't want to knit stitches through the back loop, then you simply slip them in a slightly different way. Here's how we do it. So we slip the stitches as if we're gonna knit them together. But then instead of slipping them back just the simple way, we're gonna slip them one by one, knitwise, like this. And this will make them in the same way as they are normally when we knit stitches. So they are not twisted, they're just your regular stitches, and then you knit them as usual through the front loop. So that's just another option, but I normally use the knitting through the back loop option, the one that we did over here, because it is easier. As you see, these mini cables look the same whether we cross them with the help of a cable needle or not. So feel free to use any of these methods when you add 2-stitch cables to your projects. To read this tutorial as a set of step-by-step photo instructions, go to 10roseday.com/2-stitch-cables. To download it as a PDF, join the club at 10roseday.com/club. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for all your likes and comments. I appreciate it a lot. Next time we'll talk about a way to keep the side edges neat when we work in the Russian knitting style. Click the subscribe button if you don't want to miss that tutorial. I'll talk to you then.